I believe that we have been separated from God, and every and each person, whether you do believe in God or not, we have this feeling that something is missing. So a lot of people are searching, right?
Welcome to Settling's Not an Option. I'm Adam Nebbs, and I'm here with my co-host Amanda Stanhope. This show is for anyone out there who feels like they've settled for an unfulfilling life. Whether you've settled in a relationship, the work that you do, or how you feel about yourself, we're here to tell you that settling's not an option. If you're liking the show, please follow us on Spotify, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any feedback about the show or would like to recommend a topic, you can email us at cheers-to-not-settling@gmail.com. Finally, to conclude the plug, if you feel so inclined, you can donate to us on Coffee, where we're aiming to buy some new audio equipment. So this week, we've got a guest that's a long time coming, joining us from Ireland. So hopefully the internet's going to be working throughout this convo. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes, but we're keeping our fingers crossed.
We are. We're praying to the internet gods tonight. So that's our first kind of little plug into religion. So our guest this week is Joanna Gore. So Joanna's an entrepreneur who works for Shape Your Own Life. And rather than kind of spieling off a bunch of, I suppose, titles and accolades and things, I kind of want to just talk through what I was reading through LinkedIn and the articles that Joanna had wrote. And I loved it. Straight away, I was pumped. I was back in that, that fanboy mode, just getting all excited and geeking out. Geeking out, that was the word.
Geeking out, that's what you do, yes.
I love saying geeking out. But what I loved was it just felt like a very similar journey to me, where somebody who's worked in the corporate world for a number of years, lots and lots of, I suppose, cases where of a person who's just lived their life based on others' beliefs and expectations, and probably done so unconsciously, which I think so many of us can relate to. We just do things rather than sit back and reflect. And when Joanna has done that, she's gone down a path and it's just completely changed her life, and she's now doing work that's just really meaningful. It's completely illuminated her life. So I just think that's a beautiful, inspiring story. And one of the subtexts in there was that, you can do this at any age, So for anyone out there, we're obviously all kind of on that journey now. We do hope people can get to that journey as soon as possible. I'm rambling now. I'm going to throw it over to Joanna. And I'd just love to welcome you to this show.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam. Great to be here.
And just in true S&O style, Joanna, I'd love to just know about your journey of learning to not settle.
Right. Okay. I think life teaches you lessons, Mm-hmm. So, the more we get sort of kicked in our life, the stronger we become. So, and more, resilient.
Yep, absolutely.
That's the thing. Yeah. So I did work for most of my life. I've worked in different office environments and a little bit in retail. I've moved countries. I've moved from Poland to Ireland. So I've been living in Ireland for over 16 years now.
Okay.
But it's actually, when I was at my low, that's when the aha moment came, and well, you know what? I don't want to be here. I don't like where and then at least in my situation, I just took charge of whatever was happening. I decided I don't want to be anymore dependent and reliant on anybody else. Mm-hmm. So, if it comes to my life, and especially professional life, and now earlier this year, with the whole situation, to tell you the truth, I'm still waiting for a call back from my job.
Okay.
So I decided, no, well, this just doesn't look good to me. And I said, I'm not going to be waiting forever. And I just took matters in my own hands. So I started my own business, and I got certified as a coach. And, now I can help other people. If I can even influence or, inspire them a little bit, I'll be delighted, to actually be in charge of their own life. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
There
And,
was
and
something you
just so
said in there.
inspiring.
Now I got lost in the story, but there was something in there I was going to ask. So you mentioned that there was a point where you're like aha moment where you just decided I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Can you describe that a little bit more of what really, or in what gave you the power, I guess, to get through that and push on?
Yeah, well, see, I've been sort of, I've been on a spiritual and personal development journey for a while.
Okay.
Okay. And how can I say it? Between, from, let's say, the last job that I had before that, before I was in my last job, the job before that, it was, everything was great. And then the crash happened. The crash of 2008 happened.
Okay.
And the whole company went down. And so I lost my job. And then I had my children. So a few years with the children, I wanted to go back to work. First I was working some part-time jobs, because the kids were still small.
Sure.
And then I decided, right, I want to, I'm ready now. The kids are going back to school now. And so I was ready to, go back to full-time work. And I found a job, which is actually here where I am, because it's the countryside. It's a very small town. It's about 4,500 people here.
Okay.
So any jobs there are, most of the time it's, friends and family would have the jobs. If you want,
right.
A good job, you need to travel to larger cities. Okay. So I didn't want to do that. But eventually I did find a full-time job, and I was in that job for about a year, and then this happened, right?
Yeah.
The COVID happened.
Right.
So I sort of felt, you know what, it was great to have this sense of security for a while. And then, the whole world is, it's in bits again. So I just thought, well, nobody's job is safe, and so you never know what can happen. And that sort of came onto me, and I just understood, well, I have to do something about this. I don't want to be reliant on, do I have, or will I have, or will they give me a job, or so I just decided to take charge of this, so it was like a low moment where I was quite low, and then all of a sudden, well, no, this is it. I have to change this, and the mindset then, it was amazing to see this mindset shift happening in me, because I was doing some personal development courses at the time.
Sure.
So it was sort of all bundled up together, and, it's amazing to see what can, how many things you can actually take charge of when you actually do it. When
That's
you actually,
it really is amazing.
Yeah. And that decision to make the decision is quite hard. That the first, this is it. I'm going for it, and just stick to it. And that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Well, and it's interesting because you said one thing you mentioned was something about how COVID showed us all, I guess, that we have no control over anything, which we never did, but it kind of made it very obvious. And I think that's so interesting that, because I had kind of the same thing, that when you realize that you don't have control, it's almost empowering. And it seems counterintuitive because it doesn't seem like it would be, but it's actually empowering to come to that realization.
Yeah, if you do come to that realization, then yes, yeah. But I do notice, different people react differently to the situation. So you'd have people who, yes, they do want to take charge and do their own thing, and upskill or change careers completely. And then, of course, you'll have people who just feel helpless and stuck.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Do you have any advice you would give those people who feel helpless and stuck?
Yeah, I think it's just not to be dwelling on what's going on outside, because I believe, the world we are creating, a lot of it, if not the whole, our world, personal world,
Sure.
is all, it's the internal versus external world. So, if you have a strong mindset and a growth mindset where you want to be learning and growing yourself, there's always something to do and always something to learn, okay?
Sure.
So we don't have to just feel helpless, because the more we are actually learning and growing ourselves, I think the better we feel, because we feel like we actually do have, so it's very empowering.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What are you thinking up there, Adam?
Inspiring. I'm geeking out again.
I was gonna say, I think so.
No, it's very inspiring, and I think it's just very relatable, Joanna. That's the thing I like about it.
Yeah.
Is that you're probably speaking to just so many people on that level of, the control piece. How many people in the world right now have lost their job and they're completely lost. They don't know what to do, because so many of us, we're just kind of guided by others, and I think in the work and the careers we have, that's a perfect microcosm of the actual real world, where you've got a boss and you've got a structure, and you come to work 9 to 5, you do your job, you go home, you're told what to do. And then I think when that's completely taken away from you, much like in life, you're lost. You're like, what am I meant to do now? Like, I'm the person who goes to work and gets told what to do. So I think it's amazing that you've gone through that journey. So I just wonder though, because it does seem like this year with COVID-19 that it's forcing people to wake up. But just, I know once the pandemic ends and things, a lot of people will slip back into that unconscious way of just navigating the world and expecting others to kind of tell them what to do. What would you say? Like, what's the way that I suppose others can snap out of that or wake up? Like, what are some strategies they could take now, I guess, to try and wake up?
I think if thinking deeply about ourselves and our attitudes and our mental attitude towards everything, and then you start growing. Once you're on that track of growth, you don't really want to go back, I don't think, because you find out there's still so many things I don't know, and if you get a little taste of it, you want to find out more and you want to keep growing. So I don't know, I suppose there will be people like that, but it's just their personality, I suppose, and maybe it's, maybe they don't feel the need for it. And if you don't feel the need, no one can force you to do that. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it.
That's true. Yeah, you have to be ready for it.
Yeah,
you almost have to hit some kind of rock bottom, or not rock bottom necessarily, but you have to hit some kind of point a lot of times. Yeah, that kind of forces you to go that route. Yeah,
exactly. And if yourself, like, don't listen to me or anybody else telling you, oh, this is what you should do. Don't feel you don't want to do it, you don't want to go that, it's your choice and it's your life. So in a sense, you are in charge of your life still. You're still executing this authority if I don't want to do it, So yeah.
I think that's a really important piece to the conversation too, is saying, if somebody's to go, okay, well, Joanna did it, so I'm going to listen to her now and I'm going to completely change my path, even though I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. That's kind of a, that's a bit of a hypocritical thing anyways, it defeats the purpose. So I guess it's getting people to question things. Are you happy? Reflect on those kind of preconceived notions they might have. And then they might, in 6, 12 months, however long, wake up and think, okay, no, I want to change. So yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And then, if they're not happy, what things are possible is another question, because, we are told, a lot, I know about myself when I was growing up, the standard way of thinking, you get a good education, you go to work and you get a good job, hopefully. and all this and all that. But, you know, there are other things and there are other solutions, you know.
Sure.
So if you open your mind to different possibilities, you know, things can happen that you wouldn't even think they would.
Yep, absolutely. Where do we want to go next, Adam?
Well, I'm just curious if you can just tell us a bit more about Shape Your Own Life. I think it makes more sense now, given, I mean, that's exactly what you've done. But can you tell us a bit about this business and kind of where you want to go to next?
Okay, well, the business is actually based around personal development coaching courses. So it's something I've been doing for a while, and I still plenty to learn, right? Because it's personal development, there are things that internally, you know, I have to work through and, you know, break through them and move on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, for every and each person, it takes different length of time. Okay. Yeah. So, so I do offer personal development coaching courses. These are online coaching courses. But then apart from that, and sort of being inspired by that, right? I actually got certified as a coach. So, so I'd be, you know, talking to people and basically supporting them and helping them gain clarity, like you were saying, Adam, you know, look at yourself, whether you're happy or not, and where do you want to go from there. You know, there are people who, believe it or not, don't know what they want to do. Mm-hmm. They know they're not happy where they are, but they don't know what they want to do. Okay. So I wanted to help these people, okay? So help them see where they want to go, what it is that they want in their life, so that they can actually thrive and they'll be happy, you know?
Right.
So that's what I wanted to do, yeah.
So what would you say is the first step? Because I have my own idea, I think, of what is the first step, or like the first thing you kind of need to acknowledge about yourself before you can move on in your personal growth journey. What would you think is the first thing that you need to know about yourself, I guess?
I think the first thing, and maybe the easiest, maybe, I'll be daring to say it's the easiest way, is to just realize what you're not happy with in your life and start from changing those things.
Start naming those things, and then, like putting a name to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once you know exactly what these things are, and you can, you know, work on fixing these things, and other things will come up as well. And if you do have any, you know, say long-term goals already, you can just focus and start working towards those goals straight.
Yeah. Well, and I think you kind of alluded to also, you know, to just pick a few things and just get started, because I think that's what holds a lot of people back, is it seems so overwhelming, because your mind would just start going to all these things and thinking you have to change your whole life in a day or something. And that's just not how it works, which we've talked about this before on the show, of how long it takes. And that really it's a lifelong journey. It's not something you're never going to reach, probably, this pinnacle of your existence. But and maybe we'll get into more about that when we talk about religion and spirituality and whatnot. But no, I mean, I think that's just a huge point, is just to start small, and then it would just start happening for you, like you alluded to a couple times already. It's really amazing how kind of the universe just opens up for you when you're ready for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the small steps, you know, you don't get there by just jumping over, you know, a big field. Let's say you need to get there, so you need to just push through, and one thing after another. Yeah, definitely.
Right, and get some momentum. Yep.
And you mentioned, you know, sort of plans. So if you can, if there are things that you're not happy in your life about, you know, if you can just put them even down on make a little list of them. Yeah. If there are so many, right?
Yeah. Right. Just to get it out of your head. Yeah, that's one thing too.
That's it. yeah, put them down on the list, and they can just work, work about, on the first one, and then you move on, one, second, third one, fourth one, and on. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's a really translatable idea for a lot of people. It makes me think about a quote that I heard many years ago that I loved, which was, eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Because I think for so many of us, it's as you said, Amanda, it's just this feeling of overwhelm. You're basically looking at an elephant, you're like, how the hell do I eat this thing,
Yeah.
And it's when you break it down into these small components and go, all right, I'll start here, you do get that momentum. I think those big lessons there that you've said, Joanna, so it's getting the momentum and starting that self growth journey. So it's not, you're not going to have the answers straight away, but just start the process, and then you won't want to get off that path. I've just got a question about people and the role of people in all this, right? Because that was something I found really interesting in your articles, is how people's opinions and beliefs and expectations shaped who you were for so many years. Now, we know obviously people are really important to us as human beings, but what kind of advice would you give to anyone about the role of, loved ones, friends, family, colleagues in their life along that journey when you're trying to change?
Yeah, well, I can only speak about my own experiences. So, of course, I do value highly the opinions of my family or my husband now. But, it's great to take them under consideration and think about, does it actually agree with me and with what I want? And I don't mean it to sound selfish in any way, right?
Right.
But if you want to be happy, if you want to be thriving in your life, you can't make anybody else happy if you're not happy, because we sort of, we feel it, we sense it, right? So if, let's say, if my husband was miserable and he was trying to make me happy, you pick up on this.
Oh, yeah.
So so and it shouldn't be like this anyway, like, how can I say it? Okay, going back in time, right? When I was younger, I was quite crazy and I was quite selfish at that time. And I thought the whole world was just, it was all about me. So I had to grow. And with time, I realized, well, hold on a second. It's not all about me, but, I should focus on others and, even just caring what they're feeling and what they want and all that. But when I was young, when I was a teenager, I didn't care, right?
Yeah.
Even going to my early 20s, I didn't care. All about me, as if, my worldview and my world, whatever was in my head, that was the world for everybody else, which it wasn't. I know now, right? So, but even at that, whatever people were telling me, I always thought of myself that, I don't care what other people say. Whatever they were telling me was actually sinking in, it was actually roots in my mind in some way, So the advice that I was given from my parents, even though it was, from a goodwill, they wanted well for me and everything, but it wasn't sad. So think if you, take others' opinions and advice under consideration, but still, you need to check yourself. Check with yourself if it agrees with you. Don't just believe blindly and do whatever else things you should be doing.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, and I think too, this is coming to mind that there's also a certain level of guilt or obligation that you have to get past, because you do feel like you are responsible to these people. Well, and you are responsible to your family in a way, or whoever's close to you in your life. But at some point you have to set your own boundaries around that too. And But I think that feeling of being responsible to them can cause a lot of guilt and make us do things too that aren't in alignment with our values and how we see our life or what we want out of our life.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you find that to be true for you? And maybe that's why you kind of stopped listening to everyone's opinions or didn't care when you were in your teens or early 20s, because that's almost a way of shutting off that guilt that comes along with that responsibility.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting all philosophical on you over here.
I didn't have time to analyze any.
I'm the analyzer. My career before this was a CPA. Well, I still am, but so I'm used to analyzing information is the point that I'm making. So I'm always analyzing things.
I didn't have time then to analyze anything.
Well, no, right.
Life was just going so fast that,
yeah, exactly. Well, you were a rock star too, so
a little.
I think you were a rock star.
And just for the audience's benefit, so we chucked out to our community, I suppose, on LinkedIn and said, can you just tell us a random fact about yourself? And Joanna used to be in a rock band, and she sent us a few photos from back in the day, which were pretty groovy.
Yeah, that was awesome.
She's being modest now. She totally was a rock star.
That's what I'm going with.
We had some fun. Yeah, we definitely had some fun.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I'm curious actually to hear both of your perspectives on something. So I think when we have moments where we share something that we haven't shared to anyone else before, we called it a unique thought. Is that what you designated that when you had a unique thought on the podcast, Amanda?
Me?
Yeah, there was a time when you were like, I'm having a unique thought right here, live.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
so I've got one of those
I said
moments.
it was an authentic thought.
Authentic thought. There you go. Sorry. Yeah, that sounds better. Authentic
that's
thought.
better.
So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. So I've been thinking a lot lately about self-compassion and self-love. And because I'm pretty similar, that I've led a life very much dictated by others. I always want to keep everyone happy, and somehow quite often just end up making everyone unhappy. I suppose that's a bit of an over dramatization, but it just normally means that.
Mean, though.
Yeah. And what I've only just realized at the age of 32 is that I think for me, self-love, proper self-love, is looking inward and realizing that you're the joining of consciousness with a physical body. And it's the beauty of those two things coming together to make an authentic you. And just looking inward and saying, okay, I come into this world on my own, and I'm going to go out of this world on my own. And so really it's just me, but I'm not just this physical body. I'm more than that. I'm a higher consciousness that will eventually join the rest of, consciousness, I suppose, at the end of this thing. But yeah, it's just made me feel a lot more comfortable in myself, because I look inward and think, I'm a really complex entity, I guess.
Yeah.
But then you're saying it in a way that's just not egotistical. It's not about your physical form. It's about the beauty of that coming together. So I'm probably explaining that terribly, but I'm really curious to
I'm
get
like, where are you going with this, Adam?
Yeah, I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Thoughts on what part?
on really, I think, self-love, self-compassion,
okay.
and being comfortable in yourself, not always feeling that to be yourself, you need to make others happy, I guess, or follow what others say.
Do you want to hit it, Joanna, or do you want me to hit it first?
Just might.
Pardon?
Yeah, I said I might hit it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that actually this realization of who I am came to me when I started my spiritual journey. Okay, which was, I'd say, about only about 6 years ago. So you're actually better than me, Adam, because I'm 44. So I'd be much older than you to start realizing this, okay?
And I'm 43, so we'll throw that out there just so we have all of our ages out there.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so what I found is, what I believe now is that we as human beings, right, we have been separated. We have been separated. You probably noticed I'm a believer in God. I believe in God, the creator. And I believe that we have been separated from God, and each person, whether you do believe in God or not, we have this feeling that something is missing. So a lot of people are searching, right? So there is this, we can call it hunger or thirst for spiritual things, okay? And some people, of course, would not see it this way, because you do have atheists and they don't believe in nothing out there, and this is what it is, and naturalists. But for anybody else, pretty much, you would have a lot of people actually searching and feeling that there's something missing. So I think that what is missing, to me at least, I've come to realize that it's the connection with God, with the creator, okay? And what was the other point you were making, Adam?
I've thrown us off course. It's mainly, I think, just finding oneness in yourself and finding love in yourself. But we could pivot off that. I think I've completely derailed us, and so that's unintended.
No, you haven't. You haven't.
But ideally, I think maybe even if you could talk to us about that spiritual journey, like what that spiritual hunger, really unpack that a bit more for us.
Right. Okay. So how it started to me was, I'd say about 6-7 years ago, and myself and my husband were looking into, what was going on in the world, and because of the crash was happening there.
Oh, right.
All that the bad things were happening in the world. My children were shortly after being born, so the whole perspective changes as well. Your values and all that. So the more we were looking, or I'm going to say about myself, so the more I was looking at, what the evil in the world, and, it was dragging me down. It was basically weighing me down, because I felt helpless in the scale of the things that were happening. Me, myself, as one person, what can I do about it, right?
Yeah.
And then I have these 2 little children after being born, and I was thinking, I'm bringing them into this world. What, they're going to have to live in this. And, so it was a lot of thoughts going on in my head, right?
Yeah.
But the more of the evil in the world, the more I was discovering that if there is, yes, people can be greedy, power hungry, and all that. Once they have it all, once they have all the money in the world, and once they have, all the power in the world, there's something, to me, it looked like there was this behind it, there was this driving force, right? Sure. Which I didn't know what it was at that time. Mm. And believe it or not, for whatever reason, on YouTube, we came across this documentary. It was called Age of Deceit.
Age of Deceit.
And we watched that Age of Deceit, right?
DC. Okay, got it. Yeah. Age of Deceit. Yep.
Yeah. So we watched that documentary, and it just sort of blew our mind. Actually talking about what was going on currently in the world, and what was the Bible talking about? How was the Bible prophesying what's going to happen?
Okay.
Fit. And it blew our minds. So we said, right, maybe we should look into the Bible. If it's so accurate, maybe there's something in it that we could actually, learn from and benefit from, So we were thinking about it, but we didn't act on it yet.
Okay.
There was a knock on the door, and the Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on the door, right? and they offered us a Bible study. And I was very reserved, and I said, right, no, I grew up as a Catholic, by the way.
Okay.
So, I grew up as a Catholic. So, and I was like, the kind of that we went to as a family, we went to the mass every Sunday.
Sure.
And we celebrated all the holidays and all that, but there wasn't about any spiritual matters apart from that, So I never knew, what's actually in the Bible. I was just whatever I was told at mass and whatever the priest was saying, and that's all I knew. The very, very basics, right? So when we met with the Jehovah's Witnesses and they offered us the Bible study, my husband was forced into, because he was into that subject. He was just drilling in, and he says, well, yes, of course, come on, let's do the Bible study.
Oh, they wanted to do it right then.
The Jehovah's Witnesses were actually shocked, like, what? But yeah, so he started studying the Bible with them, okay? And it was literally just reading the Bible and learning different subjects from the Bible. He would be asking them questions and they would give him answers based on the Bible, okay? And once I heard them meeting a few times, I said, right, maybe I'll just join them once and see how it goes. And I joined in and I really enjoyed it, right?
Yeah.
And then so I started reading the Bible for myself, because it intrigued me so much how accurate it was and, what was going on in the world at that time. Then as that, I thought I knew from my Catholic faith, the certain doctrines and certain teachings that were actually not in the Bible, or the Bible was teaching something completely different about it. So it sort of straightened just the reading of the Bible straightened everything that I said, all my misconceptions, like, for example, how God, who is love and forgiving and good, can punish people with eternal torment in hell, right? Things like this.
Right.
So when I was reading the Bible, all this sort of got cleared out and straightened out. And so eventually I've come to believe in God properly, because before that, I was more like an agnostic. I did go to church up until 17, and then I was brave enough to tell my parents I'm not going anymore, because at that time, what actually pushed me to stop going to church was the priests in the church were actually telling people who to vote for in governmental election.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I just felt, I didn't even know, what was wrong with it, but I felt this was wrong. They shouldn't be telling people who to vote for,
Sure.
So I said, right, this is it. Put my foot down, and I'm not going to church anymore. And
now, did you say that was when you were 17?
My parents started. That was when I was about 17 years old. Yes.
Okay.
So from when I was 17 to about 6 years ago, so for more than 20 years, I was an agnostic. I didn't know God. I knew there was something there.
Right.
But I didn't know what it was. Sometimes I thought maybe it's an energy, and sometimes I thought, well, maybe it's not, maybe it's aliens, because I didn't know what it was. So but it's actually the reading of the Bible, opened up the whole new world to me, and the whole spiritual growth happened.
Yeah.
Was that your question, Adam, actually?
Yeah.
Yes.
The new question, the coherent question, yes, that answers it.
That was. Well, and it's really interesting because I've just started watching some interviews with I can't remember his name. Rob.
Is it Joe Bell? Joe Bell?
Rob Bell.
Rob Bell. There you go.
Bell. And he said he wrote a book about the Bible, like explaining the Bible, and he said most people that go to church don't ever read the Bible. And if they ever did actually read the Bible, they would know that everything they're being taught at church is completely wrong. Or not, he didn't exactly say that, but like it would bring down the foundation of the church, because the foundation of the church is built on things other than what's in the Bible. Like you said, all the doctrines and everything. So it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I've just been learning about that, and it's just a really interesting way to think of it. So I guess, do you believe now then, I guess, what's your idea of God now? Is it like the typical Christian God or I was brought up Christian, so that's what I think of if I hear the word God. Is that still how you see God?
So who is the typical Christian God in your opinion?
So, gosh, that's a good question. I guess I just think of it, that's a really good question, because I guess I think of God as what I was taught is, he's a creator of everything. He had Jesus, he created Jesus to come save us from our sins. And
he's all seeing, all knowing.
Yeah, all seeing, all knowing. I know, it is funny now that you asked me that. I'm glad you asked me, because it really, I can't answer that question very well. And isn't that funny that all this time you hear all these teachings, and I don't go to church. I haven't gone to church in a long time, but I did when I was a kid. And yeah, you hear all these teachings, and yet you really don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, that's true.
And
so
I imagine you could answer that question better.
You weren't far off. Yes. So the Bible teaches that God is the creator of everything, right?
Yeah.
And that Jesus was sent to earth because there was a need to save humanity, right?
Yeah.
So the misconceptions that I had before were I didn't know sometimes Jesus was being taught as being God.
Right. Like they're talked as one and the same sometimes, talked about as being one and the same.
So within the Christian denominations, you have people who believe that Jesus is the God.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus and the God of the Old Testament are the same person. And then you have Christians who know these are two different people. So as far as I know, the Catholic Church's official doctrine is that it's three persons in unity creating the Trinity.
Right.
Which was, to me, years ago when I still went to church, that was, I didn't know what it meant. How can it be? Because the teaching was there is only one true God, right? But then you have God the Father, God the Son, and Holy Spirit, right? So there was the God. So I said, so is it one God? Is it three gods? And I was just confused, and it was never explained to me, whether in my home where it's supposed to be explained to me, right?
Yeah.
But or be it in church, I never understood it. So so that's one subject that the Bible is clear about, that there is God, the creator, who the Bible calls the Father.
Right.
And we are all his children as of we've been all created by him.
Yeah.
And then you have God's Son, which is Jesus.
Yeah.
And then you have the Holy Spirit as well, right? But there's
so
only
you're
one.
Thinking of them as three separate. So now, based on your studying of the Bible, you see them as three separate, not the unity.
Clearly, Okay. No, they are in the unity as of. How can I explain it in really, really simple terms?
Like they're a team.
They're
a team, but they're not all the same.
But I have to, because I do have children, and I want them to understand this.
No, that's really great.
So so God the Father, right, and he is the ultimate authority, right? Okay. When you read the Bible, you get the sense of there is a chain of command.
Okay.
So you have God the Father, who is the ultimate authority. And now, after Jesus' death and for what he's done for the humanity, Jesus, by God the Father, Jesus has been given authority over the whole lot, right? Over the whole
Got it. Okay.
Heaven and earth, right?
Yep.
So Jesus is the next sort of authority, right?
Okay.
So that's very simply put. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So because like Jesus says in the Bible that his Father is more powerful than him, but then he says all authority has been given to me. So he is the king. He is the ruler whom God selected to rule. If you get my drift. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's basically like delegating your authority to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too. So, because Adam and I have been talking about it a lot, and then this Rob Bell talked about it a lot, about like he kind of bridged the gap between religion and spirituality, and kind of, because they are seen as kind of separate things in our society. And he was trying to make the point that they're not separate and that everything's connected. And because I think a lot of religion, the doctrines, I would say, not the Bible itself maybe, but the doctrines that are taught through the religion actually separate people. And so I guess I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on the connectedness of us all. Like, do you feel like we are all connected?
We are, in a sense that we are all created by God. So we are all children of God, right? Yep. So in this sense, yes, definitely we are all connected. Yeah.
And then what do you think happens? So what do you believe happens after we leave this earth? Does that connectedness, like, do we then get connected in the afterlife? Do we connect with God?
Yeah, that's another song. We can get connected with God here on earth. And this is actually what God wants of us.
Okay.
He wants us to come back to him and in this personal connection with God. Okay. And that's what people do when they pray.
Yeah.
It's like this channel of communication with God. So the way I see it is the Bible is God's message to us, right?
Yeah.
And the way we can connect back to him is through prayer, right?
Okay.
So it's two ways communication.
Okay.
And the Bible is like a mirror. It'll show you exactly what your misconceptions are, right? Okay. So if you trust, like that's what I learned. If you trust the Bible to interpret itself instead of putting your own understanding to it and try to figure the meaning of the Bible from your own perspective, your own worldview.
Gotcha.
You sort of have to have a clean plate completely. Just get rid of all your own beliefs and start studying the Bible, So then that's when the Bible will reveal everything, right?
Sure.
So yeah. So things like death. You asked the subject of death. The Catholic Church teaches that we have a soul that's immortal.
Yep.
And when we die, the soul either goes to heaven or it goes to hell or it goes to purgatory. Now the purgatory is a little bit, some people would say, oh no, we don't believe in purgatory anymore, right?
Yeah.
But when you read the Bible, that immortality of the soul is not in the Bible.
Okay.
So the Bible, so to me, it boils down, when you go all the way to the beginning of the whole story, right?
Yeah.
You probably heard the story of Adam and Eve in paradise, right?
Yep.
And it says, so you'll be going back to the first book of the Bible, Genesis, right? And it says in Genesis, it's basically what God said versus what Satan said, right? Okay. So God told them, if you eat from this tree, right, you will certainly die.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And then Satan comes in and he says, you will certainly not die.
Sure.
So it's what God says versus what Satan says, put it simply. And when you think about it, when I was thinking about it, sort of, that was my another aha moment when I was reading the Bible, right? Because when I was thinking about it, God didn't tell Adam that when you eat from this tree, you will certainly die, as of your body will die, but your soul will live on somewhere else. But it's hell, let's say. In Adam's case, it probably would be hell, right?
Yeah.
He didn't
I feel picked out right now.
You feel what?
say that.
Oh,
he didn't
Adam.
say, because that still...
I didn't even make the connection. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam.
Sorry, guys. Keep going.
Yeah, so God didn't tell Adam that he would live on, his soul live on. Satan comes in and he says, well, you will certainly not die, or he implied that maybe their body will die, but their soul might live somewhere, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so because by saying to somebody, you will certainly not die, you're implying something, or you're saying something, right?
Okay.
And clearly it was something that Eve liked. She liked that answer more than what God was saying. So she chose to follow Satan, right?
Right.
But that's not what God said. God said, you will certainly die. And then in other parts of the Bible that talk about, this, they talk about, first of all, that all people are sinners. And then it talks about that the soul that sins, that soul will die. So that means we all die. There is no, so that's quite a deep subject. You have to actually study.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah.
Understand what it says, or I'd have to look up maybe a few scripts, things, when people die, there is no consciousness, there's no, they know nothing. The Bible says that they know nothing at all, which means, if you go to the subject of soul, and that, I used to believe in ghosts.
Sure.
Ghosts that I used to believe in, because I believed that, when somewhere, and the whole idea of purgatory, where the souls don't go straight to heaven or to hell, there's just sort of somewhere in a limbo, and they're stuck. Some people would believe these are people with unfinished business or whatever.
Yep.
So having all these ideas, I thought, the ghosts that people talk about, seeing or whatever, that these are the deceased people, the souls of the people who died, right?
Right.
I believed before, but that would go hand in hand with believing that the souls are conscious, that they have their own mind, and they have whatever thoughts and desires, and they can do you good or they can do you wrong, and all this, right?
Sure.
But that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that when people die, the dead know nothing at all, which means there is no consciousness, there is no want, there is no need, there is no harm or pain or suffering. All this is gone, which to me, when I read this, was a big relief, because thinking I'm going to go to hell.
Well, right.
And born there for eternity and suffer or whatever. So that was to me very big relief, because now I knew, okay, so if there is no consciousness, if I cannot feel pain, there is no hell then, right?
That's true.
In this sense, in the sense of,
right.
of eternal torment and all that, right? Which this is another subject that actually Bible clarifies, as well.
Sure. So then you also believe that there's no heaven, is that correct?
No, there is heaven. Yes, there is heaven, because the Bible teaches that, God is in heaven, and heaven he gave to his spiritual beings, his angels are in heaven, and earth he gave to people. right?
Oh, but okay, so you do believe in heaven, but you just don't believe we go there after we die. Is that
Some
right?
people, the Bible teaches that some people do go to heaven, yes, and they will be co-rulers with Jesus when the new system is set up.
So basically, if they're, because I'm just trying to make the connection. So if there's no consciousness after you die, then how can your consciousness go to heaven?
You don't go to
Or that's
heaven.
where the disconnect
Yeah.
is coming in.
Yeah, it is a good question. Yes, definitely. Because what I could understand from the Bible is you don't go to heaven straight away, right?
Okay.
The Bible teaches about resurrection.
Yeah.
And that resurrection is the word resurrection. When you look at the meaning of the word itself, it means to stand up again in your bodily form, right?
Sure. Yep.
And Jesus performed resurrections when he was on earth, and his disciples as well. So there
Sure.
were, it's fun, but there were actually 9 resurrections performed.
Okay.
And just to give you an example of very important, because
We're
it's
freezing up
actually going
again.
to happen, right? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Okay, so you're giving an example. So you said there are 9 resurrections, and then you said you're going to give an example.
Yeah, one of them is actually very important to the subject of soul going to heaven or not, right?
Okay.
So you probably know this story. It's the story of Jesus's friend Lazarus, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and he was dead for 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
So he was dead for 4 days before Jesus decided to go back to where Lazarus was buried and resurrect him. So bring him back to life, right?
Yep.
And Jesus decided to do it on purpose, by the way. He could have went much sooner. He couldn't went because he knew Lazarus was very sick. So, but he did it to prove a point, right?
Okay.
So he waited until Lazarus was dead, and when he went back, actually, the family members of Lazarus, they were telling Jesus when he wanted to resurrect him, they were saying, "But it's been 4 days; he'd be stinking already because he'd be decomposing."
Right.
You know? So he says, "Don't worry about that," and he basically brought him back to life, right? So the point is that Lazarus, when he came back, now Lazarus was, Bible calls him Jesus's friend.
Okay.
So you can reasonably think that he would be a good person and he probably would have went to heaven, right?
Sure. Okay.
Anyway, but when Lazarus came out of the grave, he said nothing. He didn't say, "Oh, I was on heaven floating on clouds and being in the presence of God. Why you dragging me back down to earth again?"
That's true. Yeah. Right.
He never said a word. He just came out from the grave and they unwrapped him, and it was like he was asleep and now he was awake.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. True. Yeah.
No consciousness at all of him being gone, pretty much. So that's very important. There is no consciousness. Actually, the Bible calls the death sleep. It actually likens the death to sleep.
Yeah, I do recall that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in general, the Bible teaches that when we die, we are fallen asleep, right? And we are waiting for the resurrection, for Jesus to come to the second time. And then that's when he resurrects everybody, the good and the bad and the ugly.
Right.
Yeah. So he'll resurrect everybody. So that's Bible's teaching. And it was actually, it brought me a relief when I learned about that.
Yeah. No, and that does sound familiar now that you say that. Because like I said, I haven't gone to church. I haven't read the Bible except for specific passages if I was specifically looking for something in a long, long time. But yes, that all rings true. of what you're saying. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about. And it makes me want to go read the Bible, but I'm not going to start on that because it's a really long book. And I don't have time for that at the moment, but I will. But I need to make time for it probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I would recommend, Amanda, is if you just read what happened in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve.
That would be interesting to read it without try to forget everything I've been taught about it and read it fresh. That would be really interesting.
Because what I believe is that original lie that Satan said, right? Mm-hmm. You will certainly not die. And when you look at in once, right? So, Satan, clever guy, right?
Yeah, well, of course, yeah.
So first he implied that God is the liar, that God lied, and he didn't mind to say that,
Right.
Then he implied that there is eternal soul, that we can live forever.
Yep.
There were two other lies there. I would have to read the scripture to actually, analyze it. It's quite, if you can just read that. So whatever God told Adam versus what Satan said.
Yeah.
And from that original lie, so many false beliefs were born.
Yeah, I can see that.
There were so many beliefs born. Actually, the whole, Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion, the Hindu religions, or the New Age movement, all that, all goes back to the first lie, to the sentence that Satan said, that you will certainly not die.
Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah, I am. So I will do that. I will commit to reading that. That'll be a good start. That's we were just talking at the beginning of the episode about taking baby steps and starting small. So there we go.
That's good.
Because it does sound really interesting to look at that in a new light. And now of everything that I know and have learned since the last time I would have read that, it'd be really interesting.
And see if you can find the 4 lies in that sentence.
Okay. Yes, and I'll have to put those in our description if I can find them.
Challenge.
That's the challenge. 4 lies. I'm writing it down. All right, what are you thinking over there, Adam? I know we probably got to wrap it up. We're going a little long on time.
I'm thinking we're over time.
And it's like midnight for Adam, so.
Yep. So I thought maybe we'd jump to the non-optional questions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. First question, nice easy one. Who is your hero?
Who's my hero? Is it spiritually or is it in my life?
I think that would be a nice tie-in. Yeah, spiritually, I suppose.
Well, spiritually, it's definitely Jesus is my hero. Yeah.
Love it.
I can learn a lot, many leadership skills from one person.
Well, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I'd have to say, from what I know of Jesus, he seems like a pretty swell guy and a good hero.
He's a pretty swell guy. We just learned he's been given the power of the universe, and he's just pretty swell guy.
Guys, I'm from Australia. That's how we label people like that.
I know. I love it. I love it.
Swell guy. And who did you want to be when you were growing up?
Okay, when I was very young, I didn't really have any particular trade or anything in my mind. It was changing all the time.
Sure.
But I know one thing. That's something I remember. Once I found music, that I can actually do music.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, definitely. I want to be a musician. I want to be out and about and doing my thing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, nice. And what makes you laugh the most?
It's different things. I don't have a set things. I think silliness that comes from watching people being arrogant and snobs, that way. Yeah. I love watching Frasier. Perfect example, him and his brother. Perfect.
Yes, that's true. I haven't watched that show in a really long time.
Great show. On that note, I do also want to let the audience know too that I read up just before, Joanna, that English isn't your first language, is it?
No,
So,
I'm
well
sorry
done.
about my bad English.
It's amazing. You would never guess.
No, you would
Hats
not.
off to you, because English is my only language.
Yes.
So anyone who can speak more than one language, I'm very impressed by. So well done.
So do you not speak English at home?
I do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I do speak English because now I'm in Ireland. My husband is Irish.
Right.
Children, when they were small, they were speaking Polish. I would
Yeah.
speak to them Polish a lot, and they would reply in Polish. But once
That's
they
awesome.
went to school,
Yeah.
once they went to school and everybody else then started speaking English, they just switched to English because it's so much easier for them than
Oh, for
Polish.
sure. No,
So
that's awesome.
just for convenience, they don't want to speak Polish now.
Right. I can understand that. All right. So did you want me to give our final thoughts
close it
here?
up.
All right. So we want to thank, first of all, I want to thank Joanna for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we've been trying to make this happen for a while. We finally got it done. 3 different time zones, bad internet, but we got it done. So we appreciate it. And I am looking forward to checking out the story of Adam and Eve, and I will see what I learned from it. But on that note, to our listeners and viewers, be sure to like whatever, however you're watching this or listening to it, like it, share it, comment, do whatever you can if you like what you're hearing, because that will help us get more traction. And I think Adam mentioned, did you mention coffee at the beginning? I'm sure you did.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
yes,
you did.
So please,
yeah,
please
so just a
donate to
reminder
the
too
show.
that you can support us for as little as $1 over on Coffee, and there'll be a link to that in the description to the audio or video. And we definitely appreciate anything you might be willing to give to help us keep this going. And until next time, we'll say cheers to not settling.
Yes, to not settling.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Bye.